Hello and welcome to Undercommon Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
It's a world. Let's keep it that way.
I'm Ian Woodworth and I'm joined by my co-host James Daly. Today we are not going into Mechanus. I know we promised you guys that we were going to go into Mechanus at the end of last episode, but we have a special guest that we got the honor to interview for today's episode that we just could not pass up. So allow us to introduce to you Jonathan Pruitt of WebDM. Pruitt, welcome to Undercommon Taste.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate y'all having me on. I hope your listeners enjoy this talk, and I am sorry to abolish the order that is Mechanus and its place in the queue.
It is just a temporary delay. The cosmos will realign itself. It'll be fine.
If we're going to abolish order anywhere, it's gonna be Mechanus. I mean, really, come on.
Yeah. They have order to spare.
Absolutely.
I mean, Orcus managed it, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, how is everything going today, Pruitt?
Things are good. Things are hectic. I just had our big announcement for our Kickstarter coming out here. It goes live on June 9th. And so it's just been busy as far as just responding to all the things that happen when you're doing this. So this is new to me. So I'm just trying to keep my head above water, but it's fun.
So, let's go ahead and start off with, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself for people who may or may not be familiar with WebDM, for the three people who would listen to our podcast who wouldn't know who you guys are.
Oh, that's all good. I'm one half of WebDM. I co-host the show on YouTube alongside Jim Davis, my longtime friend and DM. We started playing D&D together when I was like 19, 20, so more than half my life ago. And about 6 years ago, we started up a channel with another friend on YouTube and been plugging along ever since. And finally, this year, we are putting our creator money where our commentator mouth is, I suppose. Instead of talking about books and things coming out for various role-playing games, we decided to go ahead and make one. So we are making a supplement to 5e called The Weird Wastelands.
Awesome. So what can we expect with Weird Wastelands? Is it a full adventure? Is it some single campaign one-offs? Or is it something different?
Well, no, it is not either of those, but you could do adventures from it. It is a exploration toolkit, much in the same vein of like the 3.5, like Stormrack and Sandstorm and all those, where it's more of an implied setting. Any longtime listeners of WebDM would know Jim ran a game for a while in a setting that he called The Land Between Two Rivers. That was very much a post-apocalyptic wasteland type, and so there is much of the soul and the spirit of that setting in this book, but it's more of we call it an implied setting. It's a exploration toolkit that has locations, it has monsters, NPCs. We're going to do a subclass for each of the main classes. We're doing our own original take on the Scion, and basically what we want is to just provide a toolkit to support DMs in the exploration pillar, which we have long thought is a much neglected pillar of play in 5e.
Absolutely. So basically, it's going to be a world build primer for those who were interested in such.
Yeah, if you're interested in magically created wastelands from magical apocalypses, and you would like to have locations and little set piece encounters ready to just plunk down into your world, that's the whole idea. We wanted to try to make this as easy as possible on DMs and players. More DMs for use at the table. Like I said, there are player options. We're going to have some spells and feats in there as well. Also some, fun wasteland equipment. But we really want this to be more about ease of use for the DM and to have fun exploration, type encounters, and to bring that back into the game, because it's the old adage, it's not the it's about the journey, not the destination. So let's not just fast travel through everything.
Awesome.
Right, yeah. And I was actually going to ask if this was going to be in the same vein as Land Between Two Rivers. I started into the series, and then I got about 3 episodes in, and the company I work for banned earbuds on the floor. It was a sheet metal shop. So I suddenly fell way behind on all of my actual play podcasts and such. So I didn't actually manage to get past the first few episodes, but I really enjoyed the setting that Jim had put together for that, and I was hoping that this would be along those lines.
Yeah, anybody who knows anything about the Land Between Two Rivers, you will definitely, the DNA is in there, right? And so it may not be so, it's not This isn't so like monster centric, whereas Land Between Two Rivers was like no core races at all, because that was something Jim just wanted to do. But this is more about the actual like scarring of the land, the repercussion of that, and what does that do to a land whenever it is just completely obliterated by magic, just rended through, and what happens after when the gods are gone. It's just, basically, what was the sentence that we came up with as our elevator pitch? It's what if Skyrim and Fallout had a baby, and that baby was raised by D&D.
Oh, nice. That
So,
kind
so
of makes me excited.
yeah, that's where we're aiming. That's the lane that we're trying to aim down, right?
Yeah, because the two big franchises that we are fans of here on this particular podcast are Warcraft and Bethesda. So this is actually right down our lane.
Absolutely. Again, going back, some of my first RPG experiences was less tabletop and more video games, but the first two Fallouts were my real kind of introduction into that role play character building type thing.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I'm right there with you. The guy who was my first DM, he showed me Fallout one day, and he's also the person who introduced like the Baldur's Gate games to me.
Oh, Baldur's
trying
Gates are great,
trying to ease me into playing D&D because at that
Gateway
time
games you call them?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, exactly. That's exactly what they are. But Fallout was one of the games that really hooked me in, and I have not played Fallout 4, but pretty much every other version I've at least played, if not beaten. But Fallout 3 to me is like one of the best games ever
Fallout
made.
3 was amazingly done.
Yeah.
I really like it. Of the newer ones, I mean, kind of rabbit trail, of the newer ones, I really think that New Vegas really has the feel of the first two, but Fallout 3 was extremely well done.
Yeah, a little bit more of the silliness.
Yeah, 4 was fun. New Vegas, I think, is my favorite.
Yeah, getting to listen to Big Iron while shooting people with a revolver. It doesn't get much better than that. Right?
So, again, you talked about how kind of this world there's been some sort of magical catastrophe or repercussion or something like that. So it sounds like you actually get into some ecology of the world that has to deal with this magic as well. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, when I say that, like, we are going to offer just various options for like flavor text. So if you have a world and you've had a magical apocalypse, this could be a book that you could use to help fill out that setting. Right. So we're going to have multiple options like, what happens if the gods leave? What happens if there's a magical disaster? Because all this comes out of we actually had a campaign where everybody, instead of winning and being the big damn heroes, we had a TPK and the bad guys won. And it was a bunch of vampires and drow and they blotted the sun out. And so that happened in the campaign world that Jim had because he had this ongoing campaign world that every campaign took place in it at some date and time or whatever. And so our next campaign was people raised in a world with no sun where the ecology is wrecked. And it's just like, it's a very weird wasteland. And they're trying to bring the sun back. But the surface is completely changed because it's like a century later. And so this idea has been kind of brewing for a while. And so that's why we just decided to do like a book like this that, it has locations, it has adventure hooks, but we're not going to give you a specific setting to play in. We're merely going to give you a toolkit to fill out the setting if this is your cup of tea,
awesome.
basically.
That sounds fascinating.
And that is something that really is missing in 5th edition. It's something that we've actually touched on multiple times on our podcast, is that we're having to go back to the 3rd edition and 2nd edition books to get the lore and the locations and the people to make these scenarios, to make these campaign settings, to make these worlds, because like in the Dungeon Master's Guide, so many of the outer planes especially have been distilled down to one paragraph. And you cannot use one paragraph to create something on a plane like Elysium that has 4 layers.
No, there's absolutely no way.
Yeah, I think this is a case of like, I'm not sure the reasoning behind it specifically. I think it's more of just them trying to have a kitchen sink approach where they're like trying to give you a little bit of everything, but it's not really enough to use. It's more of just like, yeah, no, there's this place and it might be cool. And if you're really good, you can go there and fight. Like I totally get it. But, I guess you just have to wait for like some kind of Planescape book to come out if they ever do that.
Right.
Or, hey, wait till an awesome Kickstarter comes out and then you can kind of go. And that's really what 5th edition has been.
I think what James is going for is that's really what has fueled so much of the innovation in 5th edition is all of the third-party materials, which I appreciate that there are so many great creators in the community that have this platform, that have this framework that they can build on to create a product that people want and that people feel like they need. But on the other hand, it's WotC's game, and I feel like WotC should at least do a little bit more to give us a framework to work on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is the rub, because what you're caught in between, which I guess they've decided with 5th edition to go with more of a always leave them wanting more approach, so that they can avoid what happened in like 3rd and 4th edition with the shelf bloat, where like they're cranking out 5 books a year along with all the other third parties, and then nobody has any more money because there's just so many books, and so I don't know if that's part of it. It seems like it with 5th edition. They've been very because they only 2 books a year,
2, sometimes 3.
yeah.
I think they announced 4 for this upcoming year, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and so maybe that's showing like, hey, we need to go ahead and try to get some properties out while 5e is still going strong. Because I mean, like, you don't hear them talking about any kind of 6e or anything like that, or a next project. They're still milking this cow for all it's worth, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's popular enough that they can keep milking it for all that it's worth.
Exactly, which is why you should check out our Kickstarter and
absolutely
add to your shelf of 5e books.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, would your Kickstarter book, would Weird Wastelands actually be applicable if someone wanted to like maybe retcon it to 3.5 or something like that? Would it be easy to adapt, or is it built specifically for 5e?
Well, I mean, it's built with the mechanics of 5e in mind.
Okay.
But there's going to be a ton of location information, setting, like this type of setting, like what it would be like to live in, weather, all these things. That's going to be in there. Like information, NPCs, maps. These are all things that they don't need to be the same system. I mean, it's not really that difficult to alter from like 5th to 3.5 or back and forth. I've done it plenty of times with, old adventures, because that's one of my favorite things to do, is just take a piece of an old adventure that's like, oh yeah, we can finally use that, And so, yeah, I think you should be able to use a lot of the information in this book for sure, because any longtime listener of our show knows that we love random tables, and there's going to be plenty of those for just like building encounters and what that would look like, pulling out like story hooks, things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, I love tables. But yeah, especially if this module, like you talked about, if it's scenes and settings and hooks and all of that stuff, that's great. I mean, 5e, we all love 5e. We do 5e. But if you wanted to roll like a different system, like a fate system or something like that, that sounds like something you could really just be able to kind of take these ideas and run with them. So don't have to pigeonhole 5e, but if you want to try something different, it sounds like this will work really well for that as well.
Yeah, inspiration is system agnostic, and that's something that I have thought, and it's just a mindset that I use. It's weird that playing like almost 15 years of just D&D, really, like played Face Rip like once or twice, a White Wolf game here and there, but almost exclusively D&D. And then when we started WebDM, like all the different games that I've played since, it's just been eye-opening. And I use stuff all the time from other systems, like countdown clocks from like Band of Blades or Blades in the Dark. Like the countdown clocks from that system are amazing to use for DMs trying to keep track of guards being alert or a chase scene or anything like that. But we sincerely hope, and the intent with this book is to provide a ton of information in a very usable fashion, not blocks of text, but like very, bullet point lists, like I said, random tables, things like this that you can just look at. It's all right there on a page. It's not hard to find the pertinent information that a DM or GM would need to run their game and have this thing just plunked down in it. So that's the hope.
Now, I did notice on the official Twitter post in the comments that it was brought up that there is going to be a lot or a substantial chunk that's devoted to things like wilderness travel and resource management.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because that's a big thing. It's something that we've always had in our home games. I don't know if either of you have played Adventures in Middle-earth, but no. I mean, we talk about the Adventures in Middle-earth travel system all the time because it is like a revelation, right? As far as a 5e exploration pillar support mechanic, it is utterly amazing. Me and Jim played in a game over on Encounter Roleplay. It was like an 8-week or 10-week game. And every time we used the travel mechanics from it, it was just like, why isn't this in the DMG? Like, it just gives everybody a roll to do. You make one roll, it affects the whole thing. You get to your location either tired or you found some stuff or whatever. But it's just one of those things of just like, this is what we need. And so what we want to do and what the intent is we want to have different versions of tracking encumbrance things of that nature, like just a few different ways, like, hey, you could try it this way or that way. Different things that we have learned over the years, either from other systems or house rules, things like that. But that is the idea, is we want, as far as just like, if you want to talk about tracking resources, like rations, water, torches, arrows, things like that, we want to have options so that you can find the right level of crunch in your exploration, but we also want to have like a structure in a system. Much like, there's a specific structure for combat, right? Like everybody knows what you do when it's time to fight. It's right there in the books, right? You roll initiative, you determine who goes first, you do your thing, do all your actions. Like, why isn't that in exploration? Like, this should just be something that is already there. And I'm not saying that we're just going to fix it, but that is what we're looking at, is we're looking at a dearth of mechanical support in what is supposed to be one of the three main pillars of this game. And we want to give DMs the opportunity to have fun exploration so that their players can go out. This is a game of exploration after all, and you're supposed to go out into the brave unknown, not fast travel to the dungeon door. So again, that's the intent.
I like that. So kind of going back, referencing Fallout again, I know like you had some of the hardcore modes where you had to manage how much water you drank while you're out in the wilderness. And I know personally, most of the games that I've run and most of the games I've played, things like rations and even counting your arrow shots, things like that, totally get left behind. So actually having a mechanical version to kind of keep track of that thing would add so much flavor to the game. Are you walking through a swamp? Are you walking through a desert? Is the area magically irradiated? Is the natural food you're going to find not going to be good or good to eat or beneficial or harmful? I think these are actually some really great concepts that would be a lot of fun to work with.
Oh, the consumption of food, and I'll get into a little bit of detail, like a little behind the scenes detail here, because this is a main point of something. I'm not saying we want to fix it, but there are many spells and features that circumvent exploration entirely. Right? You don't want to worry about that? Okay, we'll just take the Outlander background and you can find food for you and 6 people and you don't have to worry about it. Like, really, like, it's just like, okay, well, don't have to worry about that now. Oh, I'm a druid and I took Goodberry, and we do that every day. And we just eat Goodberries every day. We've done that for a month.
We have a cleric who does create food and water, so we have water to drink.
Yeah, exactly, right? So here's the thing, though. And what we talked about is, how many times have you been told in various media, games, fairy tales, or whatever, but every time a fairy offers you magic food, you're told never to eat it. Ever.
Yes.
You never eat magic food.
Let's get some Phalor in here. Awesome.
Exactly. Right? So that's the whole, like, we were looking at it from that angle. So, like, while those spells and features will still be in there, we are going to have some rule support of be like, well, this is how you can change them to not necessarily make playing in this using these rules on survival mode, quote unquote. But if you just eat magic food every day, that's going to alter you somehow. In a land that the entire world was altered by a cataclysmic magical event, if that is what you choose for your apocalypse, like, don't you think that using magic to eat might be a bad thing?
That's a great idea. That is a beautifully well done idea. I love it.
So that's where we're coming from with this. So we wanted to offer a way to keep these things in the game. Think about the fact that you only have X amount of rations and water and whatever, but not be so granular that you have to keep track of every pound, every gallon. Right? So that's the hope in the end, is it's something that you have to keep on your mind, but it's not like you're having to balance your budget. That's if we land the plane, like we've talked about in all of our meetings and what we have outlined, that's where we're going to hit, that's where we'll hit up.
Right. And I've seen a lot of homebrew rules regarding magical food and drink of the cumulative effects of, you can do this, once or twice. Mm-hmm. And be okay. But once you start making a habit of it, even just taking a real world example, rickets, jaundice, scurvy.
Oh, gotta get some scurvy.
Gotta get those lemons.
All of these nutrient deficiencies, because yes, it will sustain you. It will give you calories, but it won't necessarily give you the things that you need to operate optimally. So it'll keep you from starving, but it probably isn't so great for you to continually eat it in the long run.
I totally want to throw some scurvy in my campaign now.
What's funny is we have a home game where Emma, one of our partners for WebDM, she's playing a character named, she had a character named Scurvy, and now she's playing a character named Murvy Curvy. They're both pirates that were on the same ship. But anyway, I digress.
That's awesome. So again, we talked about your inspiration. A lot of it was from this Land Between Two Rivers. What other sources or materials did you kind of pull from to add to this? I mean, was it just all 3.5 East? Was it stuff from other stories, other games? I mean, kind of where did you get your ideas and your inspiration from?
Well, I try to pull from all things that involve like the general scope of the project I'm on or like the game I'm preparing for, right? So this is like Weird Wastelands. This is Magical Apocalypse, right? This is, to me, this is Mad Max. This is any other, this is being Khan on SETI Alpha 5. I mean, like, I think about what it took for them to survive with nothing on SETI Alpha 5 for as long as they did. And like, this would be a wasteland like that, right? There's obviously ways to survive. You just have to figure out how to do it. And so I try to pull from everything. I think that anyone who looks at this can see that there was some inspiration from Dark Sun. Definitely. I've never played like a full campaign in Dark Sun, but it's always been one of those campaign settings that I love reading about. I love reading about cannibal halflings riding dinosaurs and the fact that everything is psychic, like the plants, everything. And so, I mean, really, like I try to pull from all over the place, whether it's Dune and Arrakis. I mean, even like the John Carpenter like escape movies. I love those because they're weird, like cut off tiny sandboxes of an apocalyptic setting. And so, yeah, I mean, like I can't speak for Jim, but I know that he pretty much tries to pull from as wide a net, or excuse me, tries to cast wide a net as possible when trying to find inspiration.
You've named some really great franchises. So yeah, I'm digging all of those.
And another one that I immediately thought of whenever I read the synopsis and I saw the cover art was the Dungeon Dudes campaign world of Drakenheim. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but
I'm not terribly familiar with it, no.
But it's the whole premise is this meteor fell from the sky into this city, and it had these crystals that off-gassed this toxic gas that's magically volatile. And so the city ended up being abandoned, but the people who ended up getting stuck there ended up mutating, and that's how you ended up getting like the tabaxi and the rat people and
Tiberium. Westwood
Yeah.
called that stuff Tiberium.
Yeah, it kind of was Tiberium, but that was, I think they're in their second or third campaign in that particular setting, and this whole project reminded me a lot of that setting as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at the wiki right now as you were explaining that to me, and I love it because I could see shades of like some old school Warhammer fantasy roleplay with some Middenheim action there.
Nice.
All the Skaven in the sewers, also a little Dragonlance with the whole fact that Cataclysm, some kind of meteor coming to bring about change. I love it.
Now I love the Dragonlance series, and I think those were my first like actual D&D novels I read. Was the Dragons of the various seasons. I think was what my wife got me to read.
Autumn Twilight to start it out.
Yeah. So like
Oh, yeah.
Rastlin's my boy. I'm sorry, I just
Hey, it is a compelling as hell story. Like I started with the Driss novels, but like right after that, I read the Dragonlance novels, and so
Drist is up there with me too. Yeah.
Kellum Vor's my homeboy.
yeah. Oh, come on now. You want to get into those? You want to talk about a curse? That's a hell of a curse right there. That's one way to be a lycanthrope.
Yeah.
So going back, just again trying to get a feel for you and what you play and how you do, and kind of get some ideas for inspiration. What was your favorite D&D system?
As far as what edition? Oh
Yeah.
man, that's rough. I mean, I started with second edition. That was my first character was second. But I think third edition came out about a year and a half or about 2 years after I started playing. And I took to third edition like a duck to water. I love math. Like it's one of my figuring out a problem is one of my favorite things, and third edition to me was just a very complex math formula, and you just had to put everything in the right order, and it's like, yeah, there's an amazing character. And so I love and will always love third edition for its mechanical crunch. I don't know how y'all feel about fourth edition. We had a very, very short stint with fourth edition. I was not a fan.
James has a more negative view of fourth edition than I do.
I call fourth edition the Dark Ages.
Yeah, we're about the same with that. To me, fourth edition was the snake eating its own tail, and when you have D&D based on World of Warcraft, which was based on D&D, like, come on, What are you doing here? We don't need a video game. It's a tabletop role playing game.
I can see what they tried with a lot of things. And again, looking back at some of the stuff, because fourth edition actually delayed my entry into tabletop gaming because I heard how much people didn't like it. And then when I started playing, I found a group that was still playing 3 and 3.5. But going back, they tried to recreate a lot of lore because they needed to do something different. So it's not just the same stale rehashing. But they completely flubbed. They did great building up the lore, but the mechanics of the game, they completely flubbed.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan because they abandoned the Great Wheel, right? With
Exactly.
fourth edition. I wasn't really a fan of what they replaced it with. Like, not really. I will say, as far as like, I never DM'd fourth edition, but I do like the monster manual. I like the roles for monsters and breaking them up by that, like leader, striker, whatever, controller. Like, I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, that is a good way to do things, especially if you're trying to build a party. That's actually some great things to consider. And I believe we talked about that in one of our first podcasts, trying to figure out how to balance a party and get a group together.
Yeah, it's much easier to at least attempt it in fourth edition because since they did have those broken down, it's like, okay, well, they got a leader and a few whatevers, and they need some scrubs up front, some people on the side to fire in, and we got an encounter. And so, yeah, I mean, it's cool. I would say overall, though, I had a lot of fond memories with third and 3.5 to actually answer your question. But I mean, fifth edition is a lot of fun. I will say that. I think it's very accessible. It has a pretty clear mechanic system, and I just think that a lot of the stuff from core 3.5 or excuse me, core fifth edition is just very safe. I think that there's a lot that can be done that it doesn't have to be so samey with each one class to another.
Yeah,
and I do appreciate the accessibility of 5th edition because it lowers that barrier to entry. I know 3rd edition was very daunting for a lot of people. You know, you sit them down with their character sheet and you have this panel with 40 skills on the side of it. And like, it's like, what do I do with this now?
Well, you're going to want to keep in mind all of the skills that synergize because you want to get that +2 to everything. Sorry.
Yeah.
I used to have that memorized. I used to have every skill that had a synergy. I knew all of them. So it didn't matter the character I made. I could always at least put enough to get that +2 bump, baby.
Right. So shifting a little bit, what is your favorite non-D&D system?
Oh, this is a question that is as easy for me to answer as it is the Sunrise Beautiful, and that is Cypher System. I absolutely love the Cypher System, and I've only played in a few of its component gaming, settings like Numenera. Played some Invisible Sun, another Monte Cook game that's amazing. But Cypher System to me is one of the most perfect systems to play. I'll say this. Some people think that Cypher System is complex. It's a criticism that I've heard from many people when I try to pitch it to them. But when I went to a convention one time and ran a One Punch Man game using Cypher, because they have superhero rules, and I had 9 people at the table who showed up to play, one of which had played Cypher before. So I had to teach 8 people how to play Cypher and play a superhero game. It was a 3-hour game, and we had 3 full combats with 9 players, 8 of which didn't know the system.
That is impressive.
That is very impressive, yeah.
So that's my story I always tell when I say, so don't tell me it's too complicated. It seems complicated at first until it's like, oh, okay, I get it. And then I've seen that look on people's faces countless times teaching people how to play Cypher System. Oh, okay.
So I tutor. I substitute teach and I tutor. And that moment where you see that light bulb flip on, that's always a fun moment. So I can only imagine doing that for a game system. That had been great.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. I know that at least 3 of the people at that game were like, where's the Monte Cook booth at? And they were going to go check it out. And I was like, well, they're right down there.
That's awesome.
Did you at least get a commission?
No, Monte Cook has sponsored some shows before. So I have to, hashtag sponsored, not sponsored.
Fair enough. Is there a game or a system that you would want to try out that you haven't got around to yet that you're looking forward to?
Oh man, there's more than a few Savage World like settings I want to play in. I've only gotten to play a Savage World game like once, and that was like at a convention for like an hour and a half, and it was like, this is really fun. I want more. I also feel the same way about Dungeon Crawl Classics. Like I have a couple of books and only got to play at a convention for like some kind of charity event, and it was like an altered version of Dungeon Crawl Classic, so it was like a Western. So the rules were a little bit different, but it was the first time I actually got to play, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is fun!" But yeah, I mean, there's a couple. Hang on, let me turn around and look at my bookshelf. Oh, I really want to play. I think it's called Coriolis.
Coriolis,
I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah, it's the dark sci-fi game from with the Sweden company. I forgot the name of
Yeah.
the maker. But I've played Symbaroum. I ran a Symbaroum game on WebDM's Twitch before, so I'm glad I got that out because Symbaroum is an amazing system. If you've never gotten to play it, I highly recommend it. I know they're doing or I think they're in the middle or just finished their 5e conversion for the Symbaroum system. But I highly recommend it for anybody who's looking for that, because I know there are some of those people out there that are looking for a classless system, and that's why I love about Symbaroum.
Oh my.
Like, they do have suggestions, they do have archetypes in there, and they tell you the powers you want to pick in order to make this archetype. But at the end of the day, it is a classless system, and you can pick any of the ones you want. If you want magic, if you want to fight with a sword, if you want to be good with armor, whatever, you just pick it. It's like a 3-tiered feat kind of thing, and that's it. Those are your like abilities. And
That
then,
sounds really interesting. I haven't heard of this one yet, but I definitely need to check it out.
The art is amazing. I absolutely love the art. It's another, I think it's from Sweden, another game from that area. And it's, what I like about it is like it has a pretty small, very specific setting, but it works. It's like, here's a small sandbox, and here are the players in it, and here's why they hate each other. Have fun. And that's it. It's like, oh, you're in a forest and the elves will kill you. The elves will straight up murder you. There's no talking. There's no any. That's another reason I love it, is like it's really hard to play an elf, even though in a subsequent book they added elves as a playable race because everybody gives in eventually, right? But that's one of the things I love about it, is if you actually see an elf, there's a lot of arrows already in flight, and you'll be dead shortly. So please hold.
Yeah, the Swedes have actually been putting out a lot of really good games, and I'm really impressed with some of the products coming out. I mean, the big one that comes to my mind is Morkborg.
I've heard of this. I've heard of it. I've never gotten to play it.
I've not gotten to play it either, but I've listened to a few interviews with, is it Pele Nielsen, I think it is, the guy who wrote Morkborg. I've heard a couple of interviews with him, and it just sounds like such a great game. It also has that Mad Max apocalyptic death metal kind of feel to it. It just seems really like something I want to at least play at some point.
I'm just trying to think now. If you play this, we're gonna have to like pull up some like Dragon Force or you know some Lamb of God or.
Oh, I have a full Pandora station that's nothing but Scandinavian folk metal that we can use as the soundtrack for it.
You ever heard of Hai Lung?
No, I can't say as I have.
They are German and Scandinavian, I think. I'm not sure which Northern European Nordic country, but you should look them up, because their whole deal is they try to present as authentic of a kind of pagan music experience as possible. If you were just walking through Northern Europe at like 700 AD, I mean, I'm talking like skin drums, and like they're wearing animal skins. There's a guy who's like a shaman. There's a woman who like has a voice descended straight from fucking Asgard, and they're like a full band like thing on stage. I can't recommend it enough. If
That sounds like something Kristen has on her YouTube music, and I have no idea who it is, but it has very much that feel to it. It feels very primal and in the woods, and it's actually some really cool stuff.
Yeah, no, you should listen to, I believe it's the name of the album or whatever is called Lifa, Lifa. If you go to YouTube and type in Hai Lung Lifa, that's their live show, and just watch the whole thing. And, you know, when I was running my Symbaroum game, that literally was what was on anytime I was writing.
Yeah,
I just had that playing.
Background music for your games. That's always just such a wonderful touch.
Especially if you don't speak the language. It's the only way I can listen to music while writing.
Yes, absolutely.
That's why I love some good Tuvan throat singing. That's starting to get a little popular now with the Who, but I go back to the old school. Hun Her too. Look them up. You're welcome.
Yes, I am actually familiar with that one, but I'll do that. I've gotten to where I can do a lot of writing to just plain chants, like Gregorian chants.
Yeah,
I do that in the background because my day job is I'm an editor for an independent publisher. And so I've got a book that I'm working on editing right now that is a dark fantasy book. And that just puts me right into the proper mindset for getting to where I need to be for that book.
Yeah, no, finding the right album for whatever you're preparing or writing is a thing of beauty. It's where you can truly see the synchronicity of the universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So going back into Wastelands, because I mean that's why you're here, right? You want to tell us about your project and your Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I mean, we love hearing about you and your stuff, but stuff.
Yeah.
You talked about you had some subtypes for some classes and stuff. Is there anything you kind of want to maybe pull the curtain back a little bit, maybe get a glimpse of the everlasting gobstopper, as it were?
Yeah. No, I understand there. Yeah, like I can tell you for sure, the subclass that is in our promo that is coming out, it actually, I guess it would have come out today. You would have access to the Circle of the Broken Land Druid, which if you watched Land Between Two Rivers, that was a custom subclass that he had for that. It has gone through many revisions since then, but it was basically the idea of, imagine a druid that was the physical manifestation of the rage of a torn land. The last dying gasp of a torn land. You are the instrument of its rebuttal, right? Is the whole idea. So it was originally based around like what if a druid could get into basically like a spell casting trance, kind of like a barbarian, somewhere between a barbarian's rage and a blade song. Is kind of the idea behind it. It's kind of changed a little bit, but there's a lot of access to fire, which there's some overlap with the new Circle of the Wildfire Druid. There's a little overlap there, but it's not so much about renewal, like burning and renewing. It's more just about like, well, we're ruined, so let's just burn it all.
I really kind of like the concept of, a pissed off, vengeful druid. Generally, your druids are like the kumbaya, happy tree huggers, but
no,
a druid that's just pissed.
Yeah, no, this is not your tree
Yeah,
huggers
no, I can
druid.
totally embrace that. I can totally get behind that.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I know Jim's been working really hard on that to get out on the promo. But just to kind of bounce around a little bit, we're going to have like a techno wizard that's more about kind of putting together pieces of things to help people survive the wastelands. Another one is like the scavenger ranger. That's more about not necessarily knowing exactly what it's about, but knowing exactly where to find it is more what it's. Being a scavenger, it's all about finding those little bits and pieces that are going to help you get to the next day, right? Because
Gotcha.
that's the whole idea. Another one that I'm excited for, we're going to be working on a strength-based rogue, the Enforcer. And so, when you got these seedy underbelly types that need legs broken, you got to have somebody to do it. And, I mean, sure, they could be a barbarian or a fighter or something, but I think it'd be much more fun to have someone who's really good at breaking legs and knocking heads. And
so it's going to be kind of like the early Rocky Balboa.
a little bit.
I'm just excited now for the prospect of getting to use a billy club for a sneak attack.
Thank you. That's because like it is such a trope, but it's kind of like it doesn't really make sense for the rogue normally, and so
it's the mace rogue finally.
Yeah, you just got a sap. You got your sap that you just walk up and clock people in the head, and they fall over your shoulder, and you carry them back to your boss.
I love it.
However you want your expression to look. But basically, yes, a strength-based rogue. It's something that me and Jim have talked about, I don't know how many times, like what it would look like, what would be the expression like. It'd be something of like a Batman, like if you didn't want to do a bunch of multi-classing, Good
it's still stealth if everyone's too afraid to talk about it.
Exactly.
I can just see now.
You saw nothing. Smack.
No, I can just see now running that rogue archetype on a bugbear.
Trust me, that was pretty much the baseline archetype imagining. Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm seeing.
You got that reach, you got that extra 2d6 anyway. Come on. Yeah. Yeah.
Bossmen say I break you.
I must break you.
Oh, that's great.
And that ranger, I was thinking we did that world build with us. That ranger would have been amazing there, where you had the kind of the balance between the technological stuff and then the living vine systems and stuff, but even still a lot of your tech pieces were clockworks and things like that. That ranger would be amazing in that kind of setting.
Oh,
yeah, cool.
All right, so time for a hard question.
All right.
If Wizards of the Coast came to you tomorrow and said, okay, we need you to make a decision for us. Spelljammer, Planescape, or Dark Sun. One of these three is coming to 5e. Which one do you pick?
Man, that's a rough one because I love all three of those systems. Again, I've never played in Dark Sun, but it's always been near and dear to my heart ever since I found out about it. I have played Spelljammer. I've run in Spelljammer. It is the siren that calls to me in the vast night amongst the stars. But I would actually say probably Planescape, because to me, Planescape was a transformative gaming experience for me. I remember Jim ran a Planescape game for us. It was a very early 3rd edition game, and I couldn't believe it. Like, he did it right, where we were plane hopping every adventure. Like, every adventure we were popping into this plane and back out, and we forgot this over here, and so it was one of those things of like really kind of balancing the idea of all these dimensions or planes or worlds or however you want to see them in your head. But the fact that there's just one amongst many, and each of them has an equal chance for adventure. So, hey, your cup runneth over. Where do you want to go today? And that's the idea, like getting into that kind of like Star Trek mindset. Anything could be an adventure. And so, yeah, I would definitely say Planescape, which, by the way, I believe was created by Monty Cook, who is writing the foreword to our book.
Nice.
Yeah. We wrote the foreword for Arcana of the Ancients, the 5e conversion that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, hey.
So going back to that hashtag sponsored,
Mm-hmm.
not sponsored.
Mm-hmm. A little bit. Yeah.
I like it.
And I have to agree with you on Planescape, because we're working our way through the planes. We started on the Echo planes and went to the inner planes, and we're just getting ready to start on our tour of the outer planes.
Mm-hmm.
As we mentioned at the beginning, be starting in Mechanus.
Mm-hmm.
And so as part of that, because Mechanus is one paragraph in the 5th edition DMG, and that's all the mention of it so far in 5th edition.
Yeah.
We had to go back to the older editions,
the old texts,
to the ancient scriptures. And so I happen to have the 2e Planescape books on my shelf, courtesy of one of my wife's exes, who, well, I don't think very highly of him, but I appreciate that he left me these books. But just going through and actually reading through the 2nd edition books and all of the lore that they put into it, it really got me wanting to do a Planescape game.
Yeah, those I know what books you're talking about, and it's mind-boggling. It's beautiful.
And I've been listening to the Goblin's Corner podcast, and they did an episode on Towel Day talking about Douglas Adams and, incorporating Douglas Adams. And as soon as I got about 10 minutes into that episode, and I'm like, a Douglas Adams hitchhiker themed Planescape game.
Yeah, that's one way to do that right there.
I think another fun thing, not to give away too much for next week, because again we are talking about Mechanus, but a March of the Monodrone campaign I think would be a lot of fun too.
Oh yeah, the march around the plains where where you have to put everything back in order. Oh man, we did a piece of that. Jim one time ran it was a cipher game, but going back to your question earlier about using books for other systems, he ran the Infinite Staircase, the Planescape adventure where you get to run up and down the Infinite Staircase, but we ran it with cipher characters, and it was almost flawless. Like it was amazing to play a D&D game without D&D, but it's all Monty Cook stuff, and so we were like, yeah, it works.
So real quick, when you build your campaigns or your sessions or your one-offs, what are your favorite kind of NPC or mob or enemy character? What do you always like to throw in? Like what makes you happy to throw out your characters?
I have a couple of voices that I like to do, that I think I do really well, even though I know that I don't do very well at all, that they're always going to be in there. I'm always going to throw in a Sean Connery somewhere, and I'm always going to throw in Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, yes.
Those are like my two just go-to NPC voices, like usually early in the campaign if I haven't thought about an NPC. And I'm like, yeah, I want this NPC to kind of be important. I'll go to one of those because usually the party thinks it's funny and we'll come back to them. But I will say this, and I've only learned this recently, since I have played so many games, and especially in the last few years playing a lot of different systems, like shorter games, but I get to play a lot more characters like online, where it's a little bit more about being quote unquote in character. And so I will say this, playing in all those games has given me a bevy of characters that I can now have as NPCs. And I've only started doing this recently, using my old characters that I've played as NPCs, because I have a current sci-fi game that I play. It's just a home game. And I have used 3 different characters that were PCs that I've played in other systems, other games, but they basically have the same kind of gist and story in this game. And those are the NPCs that they constantly go back to and want to talk to all the time. And I asked them about it one time, and they were like, well, just like, I don't know, they just seem more real. And I'm like, thank you. Okay, cool. And it's just because it was like, I've played a whole game with these characters. I have thoughts and memories, that these characters experienced, right? So, DMs out there, use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Use it all.
I've done kind of a similar thing, and it wasn't my character. It was a friend's character in the first game I played, but he had a dwarf barbarian that had the best dwarven name I've ever heard, and no one can ever top this, but Red Blackbeard.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And for whatever reason, whenever he would roll a thrown weapon attack, his dice were always on fire. Could be rolling ones all day, but if he was going to throw something, it was always a 19 or 20, just how it went. So that's just, kind of built into Red's thing that if you need an old dwarf that can kind of get into trouble and throw some stuff, then here comes
awesome.
Red Blackbeard.
Yeah, I made a dwarven monk who was a brewmaster, and he had a drink that he called Gut Punch, and that was his drink that he went around and sold, and then got drunk on it as a drunken master.
So was Red the one that you locked in the library that one time?
Yes, it is.
So he's well read then.
Yes.
I'll be here all week. Sorry.
So what kind of experience or idea or theme, what's the one thing, if anybody could pick up your book and say, I'm going to give you this book, I hope you get this out of it. What's that one thing you hope people can take away from your Kickstarter?
Man, the one thing that I hope that people using this book, I hope that it is, because this is the full intent, I hope that it is easy to use, because that is one of the main things, and one of our main complaints with 5e books is how hard it is to find, or just the way the information is disseminated and presented does not behoove proper use at the table. And so, yeah, I hope that if a DM is using these location or an NPC or whatever, and they actually have to crack the book out at the table, I hope that it's just a natural, fluid situation where they just look at it, okay, I got it, and I'm put it right away, and not bring the game to a halt. Because that is, again, one of the things that we went into this going this is what we want to do. We want the information to be easy to process and use, and easy to access at a moment's notice.
Yeah, those DM pauses always break immersion, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's what sucks. Hopefully you have a party that you can say, hey, why don't y'all discuss this? I need to look at this for a minute. But yeah, I know what you mean.
And if you just put an index in the back of it, you're already doing better than about 90% of the source material for 5e right now. That's my biggest gripe, is that I think only the player's handbook and the DMG have an index in the back of them.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying when you're looking for a very specific thing. Yeah. So yes, we have to, y'all know this, you have a podcast, you talk about this kind of thing, but when you're in a position where you have to look at these books and read them and review them and talk about them to other people, it's just one of those things that always comes up. It's just kind of there's got to be a little bit better way. And I think that we have some stuff that we've come up with our own. We're taking some stuff from other systems and other books that we like. And that's a main thing. It's take your inspirations from everywhere. Don't box yourself in.
All right. Well, I think we've come to a pretty good conclusion there for the interview portion of this.
Cool.
One of the things that we like to do when we have a guest on is create a creature on the fly. We have a random table that I found months ago called the Weird Bug Generator that lets you roll a bunch of dice, and then we just sort of come up with something on the fly based on what we roll.
Especially if it's a fly. Sorry.
Right.
My bad.
The first time we did this, it actually did fly. It was the Hand of Death. So it was this carrion feeder in the shape of a hand that, it got filled up on, methane from the rotting flesh that it was eating. And so it would just sort of float.
Oh, nice.
And the stomach was a bag of holding. So it became something that people would go and actually hunt them on the battlefield after a battle and very carefully dissect them to save their stomachs so that they could be taken to make bags of holding.
Oh, that's awesome. What you always want. You want to be able to get some out of your monsters.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've got your dice.
I do. They are at hand.
All right. So let's go ahead and get started on this. And give me a D4 for locomotion.
All right. Got a 1.
Okay, it flies.
Hey.
Sweet. Well, if it flies
right.
and stings, then I win, because that's anything that can fly and sting is already broken.
All right, so next up is going to be a D6. What does it eat?
Man flesh. I got a 3.
A 3? It eats honey.
Okay, all right.
I'm liking it so far. Okay.
All right, yeah.
So we have honeybees.
Yeah, we got some honeybees on the way.
The next up is going to be a D8 for the size.
Large or colossal.
Bigger the better. An 8?
Okay, 8 is human sized plus roll again.
I got another 8.
Okay, so 2 people size and roll again. We're gonna keep going until we get something else.
I want a freaking kaiju. Come on, a 2.
A 2? Okay, 2 is a grain of sand, so it's the size of 2 people.
Okay.
All right. I like it. 10, 11, 12 feet tall.
It's a flying giant that eats honey. It's a giant Winnie the Pooh.
Christopher Robin.
Like one of those ultra large stuff you can like win at the carnival. Yeah.
I like it.
What are you looking at, Piglet? Okay, so next up is a D10 roll for the number of limbs.
Oh, 6.
6. Okay, so we are properly insectoid for 6 limbs. All right. Next is a D100 roll for the number of eyes.
There it is. That's the sound. 33.
Okay.
Nice.
33 eyes.
I love it.
I've got this mental image of like these banks of eyes across the front like a spider.
Yes.
Yep.
I think right now we're rolling a Jeff Goldblum
Yeah.
from The Fly.
Yeah, just about. Just about. Okay, next up is going to be a D12 roll for the method of defense.
Oh, D12 and barbarian. 11.
Spines. It has spines.
Sweet.
Okay, so this is turning into kind of like an insectoid porcupine almost.
Yeah, I mean, because I can't help myself. Yeah, this is kind of looking a little bit like we have the Magicore as one of the monsters in our promo.
Okay,
A manticore that eats magic. So just thinking about flying and the spines. I mean,
okay, yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
yeah.
I can see that. Okay, next up is going to be a D20 roll for quirks.
You gotta love a good quirk table. Come on. 15.
15. Roll 3 more times on the D12 chart.
Oh crap.
So we're gonna have 3 more methods of defense.
Sweet. All right, here we go. 2.
2. Okay, so this is going to be a bite, and I need you to roll something and let me know even or odd.
Odd.
Odd. Mandibles.
Okay, so it's got spines and mandibles for biting.
Yep.
I like it. 1.
A 1. Pincers.
So it has pincers, mandibles, and spines. Gee, this is just like, who created this? Somebody take away their.
This is like a spider crab almost.
11.
An 11 is spines again. Do you want to keep that, or do we want?
Well, I mean, it is twice the size of a normal human, so maybe it has spines over its entire body as opposed to half.
Okay.
Or I could roll again. I mean, I like rolling.
Or you could roll again.
Here we go.
Let's roll again and see what we get.
9.
9. A spear limb.
So not only does it have pincers and mandibles and spines, but it has a spear limb. That is insane.
I would say that would be an adapted spine.
Like an adapted spine or like a stinger, like an extended like stinger kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm kind of seeing it almost set up like, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Pokemon, but Kingler, he's a big crab and he's got one great big claw and one little bitty claw.
Yeah, I could kind of see that.
But instead of that little bitty claw, he has just a spike
like a
that
lance.
He punches things with.
Like a lance kind of thing. Yeah, I can see it. So he's got a pincer on one side and a big spike on the other, and he's got his big pincers and his big mandibles. And
that pincer could kind of act like a shield if it's flat,
Yeah.
Kinda.
And then if it all fails, just crouch up and you got your spines. You just, you put up your...
Yeah, just kind of roll up into somebody. Or you're flying, you just sit there and tuck your wings and drop.
Oh, yeah, just tuck and roll and drop. Yeah, that's that.
Just do the Kirby attack.
Like what's that bird that picks up the lizards and stuff and throws them into spikes?
Throws them into the spikes in the tree.
I should know this one. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I know what you're talking about. The thorny bristles of that tree or whatever. Yeah, that's insane.
Or, like barbed wire or anything really that it can identify that's spiky.
I impale you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When a creature would have spines, but also have like a pincer limb that sticks out in front or whatever on top of that, I mean, this is something that has like secondary and tertiary defenses. I mean, they were like raised on the fucking plane. Sorry, I don't mean to be too blue.
No, you're fine.
Raised on the plains of Chunka, right? I mean, like,
yes.
Sorry, just playing Mass Effect since it came out, but like, I mean, this is insane. Like, someone's got to be worried about being eaten by everything. It's like, well, I'll just defend myself with everything.
Yeah, I was going to say spines are, evolutionary. It's the one way to keep something from chomping on you, which means there's something running around fairly big that's twice the size of a human. So I mean, are we talking about Tarrasque here? Or?
Well, I mean, this would be a nice little like hors d'oeuvre for a Tarrasque,
Yeah.
wouldn't it?
Yeah, just about. Yeah. But yeah, there's a meme that I found, years ago with this one creature that just had, spines all over it, and it said something along the lines of, speaking evolutionarily, creatures grow spines to repel predators, so maybe we should save the happy yay we killed the beastie dance until we get off the island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's the last bit.
Okay.
Make a D100 roll, because now we make it weird.
Oh man. All right, it's going to be 89.
89, scroll down here. Can be processed by alchemists into an edible and combustible oil.
Ooh. Oh. So either maybe some of the spines come out and there's like it has a system of almost like oil for like pore or like in your pores for like hairs, follicles when they come out to make that process easier. Could use that for that. I mean, if it has spines, then those are like shish kebabs for like eating.
Yeah, I can definitely see this being like, a regional delicacy sort of thing where you would get the spines from this thing and like you shish kebab onto it, and then whatever is in it chemically cooks the meat that's on it.
Oh yeah,
That
I
would
like
be
it.
really, really interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Could also maybe that long pointed whatever is also could be a stinger, so it could have like a poison sac in there too. If a good poison or an acid to throw into the mix.
So it would expel this fluid that is like napalm.
I mean, maybe it could.
Possibly. I was thinking if you have like a pocket underneath each of the spines, maybe the spines are ejectable.
Yeah, I mean, going back to
Okay.
the Manicore, having like a discharge kind of thing.
Okay, yeah. I can see that.
So it like builds up like a little gas pocket or something that it pops out, but you could capture that gas and that's what makes it combustible, or use a fire spell at the right time. You can use their own weapon against them.
Oh, I would hate
Fireball on one of those.
I would
things.
hate to
Holy
see what would
crap.
happen if you killed one of these things with fire, because it would go off like a grenade.
Yeah, all the spines at once. Yeah, no, that's definitely a worst case scenario if the party completely screws up killing this monster. Definitely.
Do like a 4d12,
Yeah.
within 10 feet or 15
Yeah,
feet.
see, this is a monster you make like where using small fire spells, like, they just throw a flame bolt and part of it pops off and it looks like it's really hurt. It's like, oh, well, hit it with a fireball. It's like, gotcha. Should have stuck with firebolt. And you could just like nickel and dime it to death because you don't want to do the big.
Should have just used the club.
Yeah, you don't want to use the big explosion.
And what you do is if you kill it with fire, the damage from the explosion scales off of the amount of fire damage
so
you
it
dealt
could be
it.
a little
That's
bit, a
insidious.
little
I
amount,
love
or a great amount. You hit it with that fireball that you maximize because you're a sorcerer.
Yeah.
That's evil. I love it.
I make fire now.
I make you a pincushion. Ha!
All right, and I'm going to roll on it one time just because I like having two things to make it weird. See here, and of course the D10 rolls off the table. 95. I could never use these D100s to play Call of Cthulhu because I never roll anything lower than about a 70, and I would fail everything.
I absolutely love Call of Cthulhu. Some of my favorite characters were in that.
All right,
that,
so
that
95.
setting.
Shaped like a letter in an ancient language, a colony can be used to decipher the dead script.
Ooh, you could do. Let me think.
So you know those crabs that grow in Japan and they look like they have the faces of the samurai?
Yeah.
Maybe the chitin has like some sort of.
Okay. Or it's on like the face, because I would see the face as being the one area on this thing that doesn't have spines on it.
That or the
wings.
Claw, the claw.
If it has wings. Does it have wings? We didn't
It can
decide.
fly.
It flies, but it doesn't have to have wings to fly.
Granted.
Well, so here's my thing. If you use the gas thing, which I love for ejection, then maybe gas is just part of its modality. So it inflates itself and it uses buoyancy, and maybe ejects a spine every now and again to change course and direction.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't have wings. It's like kind of like a puffball, or like a pufferfish with claws.
Yeah, so I'm kind of seeing the Zerg overlords a little bit more spiny.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, either the face or the pincer could be flat enough that maybe it has a design that looks like a
I could see
it.
that as like a modeling pattern on it, maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, or just the general shape of its one pincer claw and one pointy claw forms.
Okay,
Could form
yeah.
something.
Yeah, that could work
Nice.
too.
Yeah.
It looks like it's like an air traffic controller with the flags, like giving people different signs.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so what are we going to call this thing?
Mothra.
I think that one is under copyright.
Yeah. Let's see.
The Flying Fugu.
It's like
I mean,
I'm just drawing blanks here.
yeah, I know. That's the thing is, I'm really good at this, and let's see. Okay, so it can float. It's like a puffer fish. It's spiky.
What is the name? Is it the fugu fish? The Japanese delicacy? It's the spiny fish that's poisonous?
Yeah, I think so. It is the
Yes.
poisonous one is a fugu fish. I can't remember if it's spiny or not. I think so.
The fugu puffer fish is
Okay.
what you're thinking of. Yeah. So
The floating fugu?
yeah. Well, I mean, wait. Like a Price Pfister faucet, it's called a fugu with a PF.
Yes.
It's a pafugu.
I like it.
Nice.
There it is. Just to piss people off on how it's pronounced.
Yes. Yeah, my mom's German, so I am quite familiar with PF words.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we have this flying creature that eats honey, which I don't know why it needs this punch spike and
Well,
giant
that's how it gets.
claw.
It gets down in certain flowers with its long spike, right?
Okay, yeah, I can
Right.
see that.
Maybe-
So it can do that,
maybe-
and it has the smaller pincer claw for other kinds of flowers. Maybe it developed those just to get at honey because
Okay.
it's this puffy like thing, and otherwise it can't get to it. So
Okay.
maybe that's how it does it.
Or
It's just-
maybe it raids other creatures' nests that create honey. Maybe it doesn't create the honey itself, but it's like, you know how the bears will go through and tear through like the trees to get to the
Yeah.
tree hive.
Okay.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It just goes through hives. It just punctures them. Yeah.
So here's something I want to propose, possibly going back and retconning, because on the bite we had the option of mandibles or a proboscis, and this just feels like a proboscis would make more
Totally.
sense.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, so we're going to change the mandibles to a proboscis.
So say we all.
So say we all. All right. It is the size of 2 grown humans, has
Wow.
6 limbs and 33 eyes.
All around it. Yeah.
All around. Yeah.
Maybe they were created by beholders. Maybe that's why with all
Okay,
the
yeah.
eyes and the kind of the spherical kind of gas bag kind of thing. Maybe that's why.
I
Yeah.
like it. I like it.
Good idea. Yeah.
So we're going more aberration than monstrosity.
I mean, it could be a monstrosity created by aberrations, but yeah, I mean, to me, this is at least a monstrosity.
Okay, yeah.
I would say maybe if it ate something a little weirder, it would be an aberration, but it eats honey.
Okay, yeah.
It's mostly harmless.
Now,
As long as you
when-
leave it alone.
Yeah. Now, when a beholder puts it in its honey garden, so that when prospective like looters come in, adventurers and the like, they're going to be coated in honey, and then these things are just floating around. Yeah, the party's screwed. But that's how I would use them. Like they're like watchdogs.
I love it.
That is glorious.
Right.
Yes.
And so it can be processed into an edible and combustible oil, and it is shaped like a letter from an ancient language. So either, I think we put it on the claws. It has a modeling pattern on the claw, and a colony of them put together can be used to decipher a dead script.
Oh,
So-
nice. Yeah.
Again, that kind of ties right back in with the beholder and stuff like that anyway. So
Yeah, I love the concept of a colony of these things being used like a Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
Like there's one character on one side of the claw and one character on the other side of the claw, and the character on the inside of the claw is a language some sort of language that a beholder would have access to, like abyssal or something,
I like it.
and then you would be able to use the claws as like a Rosetta Stone for this character means this.
Yeah. And just try not to get punctured by one of its little spines while you're trying to use it. It's
Right.
Can I see your claw?
the claw. It's coming to get you.
That claw.
claw.
Moves. All right. Well, I think that we have done a pretty good job here today. So, for wrapping up, this is something that we ask our guests. Is there someone in the community, maybe a YouTube creator, maybe a content creator that makes modules or some such, someone who you would like to shout out to get a little bit of visibility on? Someone who you think is doing a good job in the community and needs to get a little more visibility?
Yeah, I would say definitely you want to check out Grant Ellis. He works with us all the time, but he has his own thing that he's doing on YouTube where he's doing kind of short form videos, kind of like what we do. But yeah, Grant Ellis, you want to check him out because he's got a keen mind and a lot of gaming knowledge. And check out. I mean, he was in the Land Between Two Rivers also, Gildan the Goblin, and he's a hoot. So yeah, definitely check him out.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yes.
Awesome. And then obviously we've got the Kickstarter, so you can find that on your Twitter. So go ahead and definitely shout that out, and where to find you guys on YouTube or anywhere else. I mean, let's fluff you guys up a bit too, because that's why you're here.
Oh, definitely. I mean, check us out on YouTube. We got WebDM, and also our live plays, our actual plays are on a separate channel called WebDM Plays. We have a Patreon if you want to go check that out, where we do a podcast every week. So for, I think it's like $5 a month to get access to that. We also do we're doing some early access stuff during the Kickstarter for our patrons. But also, we're on Twitter. We're going to be back on Twitch. We haven't really been paying attention to Twitch for a while. It's just kind of, that's a lot to deal with. But we always have the YouTube show, so check that out and enjoy it. But you can also, we started releasing that wherever you listen to podcasts. You can check out WebDM on your whatever podcast app you use. That should be available.
And we will definitely put links to the YouTube and to the Kickstarter in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Cool. Appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on and talking with us today. It's been a blast.
It has been a ton of fun. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, this is it's been a heck of a good time, guys. Appreciate it for having me on.
And we'd like to say thank you to everyone who has been listening today. If you have any comments or suggestions or ideas that you'd like to see us run with in a future episode, go ahead and email them to us at undercommontaste@gmail.com or send them to us as a direct message through our Twitter account at UCT Homebrew. I'm still doing my Shakespeare and Insult page-a-day calendar-inspired roleplay prompts 6 days a week. They're going up on the Twitter account and then getting cross-posted to our Instagram and Facebook accounts at Undercommon Taste. We're now on Patreon, patreon.com/undercommontaste. We're putting all of our weekly write-ups on our Patreon account, so go check them out there. And if you would like to help us financially, go ahead and sign up to be a patron.
You can also find our podcast wherever you find podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible. So as always, give us a rate and review. That helps increase our visibility, and this way we can bring more content, figure out what you guys want to hear, so we can deliver that to you all.
And thank you once again for joining us today. Thank you, Pruitt, for coming on today. And next week, we will, for real, see you in Mechanus.
Check out the Kickstarter, and happy gaming.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Undercommon Taste. If you enjoyed what you heard, please pass it along to your friends. If you have comments, suggestions, or ideas, you can email them to us at undercommontaste@gmail.com. If we like your idea, it may make it into a future episode. You can find us wherever you find your podcasts, and we would greatly appreciate any likes, ratings, and comments you could provide. Find us on social media. We're at Undercommon Taste on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and on Twitter at the handle at UCT Homebrew. If you would like to help support the show financially, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/undercommontaste. Our theme is Massacre Anne, written and performed by Mary Crowell and used with permission. You can find her online at marycrowell.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Crowell. Thanks again for listening, and stay safe. You'll hear from us again soon.